Hi, I'm Cailey, a librarian here at Mentor Public Library.
And I'm Meg, also a librarian, and welcome to this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, where we give you book recommendations related to a specific theme. This week, we're going to be looking at sporty stories. So these are young adult books that explore all the spectrum of sports. So we got a big variety for you today of those.
Yes, and all of the books that we talk about today are available here in the library or online for free with your library card through Libby by Overdrive or Hoopla. So Meg, what is your first sporty story?
My first sporty story is called Furia by Yamile Saied Méndez. And this is the world of soccer, or as it's known in pretty much most of the world, football. So especially in Argentina, where it's very popular.
Yes.
So was a really fun one to look at. It centers around Camila, and she is a 17-year-old girl who lives in Rosario, Argentina, and she dreams of playing football professionally. On the field, her nickname or moniker is La Furia, a powerhouse of skill and talent. And she's really excited because she actually has a prospect to get a scholarship to a North American university to play on one of their soccer teams, which is like a huge step towards, playing professionally. Also, her team is about to be in the South American Championship. So there's a lot of great stuff going on with her there. The problem is things aren't so great with the family in that aspect. Her parents don't really approve of girls playing sports, especially soccer. And meanwhile, her brother is like this huge soccer star. So he's allowed to thrive while she is kind of looked down upon for it. And in fact, they don't even realize how involved in soccer she is. So she kind of has keeping a secret from her family. Then there's also Diego. Now, Diego is a boy that she used to be in love with. And then he went away to Italy and actually played on a very high profile team in Italy for a couple years. And now he's coming back to Argentina. And this is kind of giving her conflicting feelings because her ambition for, her own career in sports and stuff is in full throttle. And this is just the last kind of distraction she needs. So she's like, is he going to get in the way or what? So it's really a sweet story. And I like, there's a lot of inclusion of Spanish vocabulary and talking about the food and the culture. That's also really interesting as well. But then just the pure love that Camila has for soccer, I just think is really fun to read about. And, the struggles that she has to deal with at home, in relation to that. So that's Furia by Yamile Saied Méndez.
It's always great to find those books where, the character's passion really shines through.
Yes.
And I think even if you aren't familiar with the sport, it's still something that you can relate to them having such a strong passion for their sport.
Absolutely. What about you?
My first title is called Top Prospect by Paul Volponi.
Okay.
And this is about Travis, who is a star quarterback in his middle school football team.
Cool.
And he's following in his brother Carter's footsteps, who was just recently accepted into a top college football program. And Travis aims to be just like his big brother, so much so that he goes to watch his brother's practice and one day makes an actual impression on Travis's coach. So much so that he is offered a full ride scholarship offer for the college once he graduates high school. And he has just started high school.
Yeah.
So this really amps up the pressure on Travis, who finds himself butting heads with some of the older teammates who don't really appreciate him stealing the show as far as the football team goes. Plus, his brother Carter is finding out that, college football isn't everything that he really dreamed it to be. And he's not entirely sure if he thinks it's a great idea for his little brother to follow in his footsteps. And for Travis, being pegged as a star so early comes with its own pressures and worries. He has to give football his all, sometimes to the detriment of school or friendships and things. So this book is actually inspired by a lot of kids like Travis who are offered positions in college football, recruited even before they have finished high school. And it's apparently a thing that happens, which I didn't really realize. Seemed kind of crazy to me, but it happens. And these kids are, there's a lot of pressure put on them. And the book also shines a light on some of the less savory practices of this recruitment.
Yeah.
There's like bribes and there's talk of steroids, and some of it is just a lot of pressure to put on these young kids. And it also the book also focuses a lot on, the general troubles of high school and family and friendships and things. And so it really amps up the pressure put on this football player. And I don't know a lot about football,
Right.
admittedly, but this is another one of those titles where, the passion for the sport and the descriptions and the action, like it really shines through even if you're not interested in football.
Right. I think that's a great point that you make. Like, I didn't play sports in high school or anything like that, but these sorts of books really do give you an appreciation for, high school's hard enough, but to have these other pressures, like these athletic pressures from all over, it gives you a big appreciation for student athletes for sure. So speaking of brothers, I know the one you just talked about had brothers. Mine also has brothers. It's Golden Arm by Carl Deuker. Now, this one is the world of baseball, and it takes place in Seattle, and it's about a boy named Lazarus, or Laz Weathers. And Laz kind of comes from, has a rough home background. He lives in a trailer park. He goes to a pretty rough school where he doesn't have, like, the team is really bad. The baseball team is really bad, but he is just a fantastic pitcher. He is so talented. Well, he gets a little lucky one day when an injury at one of the fancier high schools, like on the other side of the tracks, presents an opening. And he is actually invited to join this very elite team from this very rich, affluent high school. And it gives him an opportunity to be looked at by like you said, those scouts who are recruiting for the big schools and the big professional leagues even. So it puts him on a really, advantageous path. Well, kind of similar to Furia, the one other book I talked about, this kind of conflicts with his family. Laz's younger brother, Antonio, is also a baseball player, but he's slowly getting wrapped up in the world of drugs, his younger brother is. And, that struggles with a lot of the time commitments that Laz has, to practice and stuff. So he has to make these decisions I have this dream of playing baseball, but there's some instance my family needs me, my brother, what's going to happen to my brother? He just worries about all these things, and it puts you in a crossroads. So it's really interesting to hear the author talk about, like you said, the recruiting and things like that. Also, I read Carl Deuker, the author. He's written a lot of YA sports books. He was a teacher for years and years and taught volleyball and basketball and stuff. So I think he gives a really authentic portrayal of just how high school sports work and the coaching and the drama with all of that. So he gives kind of almost an insider look into that world, which I think is really interesting. So, yeah.
That sounds really interesting. And I mean, like you said, it has some overlapping themes there with the recruitments and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
My last book is called The Avant-Guards by Carly Usdin, illustrated by Noah Hayes. And this is a graphic novel. And it is basketball, since, we've covered all these other sports.
Right.
And this is about Charlie, short for Charlene, who recently transferred to a new college, the Georgia O'Keeffe College of Arts and Subtle Dramatics. But she's not really happy about this particular transfer. On one of her first days there, she meets Olivia, who is a wildly enthusiastic, persistent girl trying her hardest to start a basketball team on campus. And for whatever reason, Olivia picks out Charlie to be the last member of their team. Charlie's not so sure about it. And Olivia's decided that Charlie is going to be the last member, and it's even more decided once she sees how Charlie plays. The two stumble upon each other in the gym one day when Charlie goes to shoot some hoops to clear her head. And then Olivia is not going to back down. And through her persistence, she wears Charlie down enough to join their basketball team, the Avant-Guards. And this basketball team is unlike any other that Charlie's ever played on. And she's had some not so great experiences with teams in the past, which is why she was reluctant in the first place. But this team is unusual, but they have a lot of heart. And they're willing to band together and work their hardest to try to succeed. And it's been so long since Charlie has played and had fun while playing basketball that it really changes her perspective right away, even though she's still nervous and has anxiety about being on the team.
Yeah.
And the book is really a lot about the friendships that they form, as well as trying to get this whole thing off the ground. It's a whole new league for them. And as the series continues, you learn more about all the other players. The first few comics focus on Charlie and Olivia, obviously. And then as it goes on, you learn more about her teammates and the struggles that they face, especially when it looks like the league may be canceled just after they got started. So it's a lot of fun. The art is really cool too. I really enjoy the style in that. And that's something we always talk about when we talk about graphic novels, how the art has to sort of catch your attention too.
Right.
And of course, if you are interested in basketball, it's also got a lot of details about the sport in there too.
Oh man, yeah. I gotta say, basketball is my favorite to watch, and that sounds like a really good one. I don't know if you viewers have watched the one where I talked about Dragon Hoops by Jean Lewin Yang. Basketball graphic novels seem to be really popular right now.
They're having a moment. There's a lot of them right now.
And I have not read Avant-Guards, but like you said, the art looks so cool whenever I've like flipped through it and stuff. So that sounds like a really good one.
So it's next on your list.
It's next. You got me with that. Thanks. So thank you guys for joining us for this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg. We hope you got some recommendations to put on your next to read list, kind of like me. And join us next time.
Yes, we'll see you next time with some new suggestions. Happy reading.